She recalled how she would sit at the dining room table, mesmerized as she listened to visiting missionaries tell astonishing tales of faith in action. How far away that world now seemed. Chapter 2. An Orderly Home. The year was 1934. 7-year-old Betty Howard peered out the upstairs window of her bedroom in Germantown, Pennsylvania. Icicles hung off the clothesline in the backyard, and the flower garden was completely covered with a foot of snow. Since it was Saturday, Betty chose to put on her winter play clothes. Each child in the family had 3 sets of clothes, one for playing, one for school, and one to wear all day on Sunday. After dressing, Betty put on her slippers and headed downstairs to help her mother fix breakfast. She was surprised to find her Aunt Alice standing by the stove, stirring a pot of oatmeal. "Hello, young lady," Aunt Alice said in a soothing voice. "I guess you are wondering where your parents are. They're at the hospital getting a new baby, and during the coldest snap we've had in years, no less." Betty plunked herself down on a chair. The baby was on its way. "I'm sure you've been praying for a little sister," Aunt Alice continued. Betty nodded. At age 7, she was sandwiched between 2 brothers, Philip, who was 10, and Dave, who was 6, and she certainly didn't think she needed another brother. After breakfast, the 3 children did their morning chores, with Betty washing the dishes and wiping the counters. Betty had just about finished her chores when she heard the sound of breaking glass. She ran to investigate and found Dave staring at a broken window in the front room. He had been playing with the window sash, which was propped up with a stick. The window had fallen suddenly, shattering the glass into 1,000 pieces. "I was trying to open it," Dave stammered, "and it fell down and broke." Aunt Alice entered the room and assessed the situation. "Step away from the jagged glass, children. Dave, go and get the broom." Frigid air swirled around the room, and Betty gave an involuntary shudder while Aunt Alice went off to call a repairman. Unfortunately, the repairman could not come until later in the afternoon, and the temperature in the house was beginning to plummet. Betty and her brothers soon discovered that the warmest place in the house was right beside the heat register, where the 3 children camped out under a blanket. Now, Betty wished for 2 things. First, that the baby would be born so that her parents could come home, and second, that the repairman would show up soon and fix the window. Sometime around midday, the telephone rang, and Aunt Alice answered it. A broad smile lit up her face as she exclaimed, "How wonderful! Thank the Lord everything went fine." After she hung up the phone, Aunt Alice hugged Betty. "Your prayers have been answered. You have a baby sister, and her name is Virginia Ann Howard." Betty smiled, though she could hardly imagine how a baby would fit into family life. Babies, Betty had observed, were noisy and unpredictable, and the Howard household was just the opposite. Everything in the house was done in an orderly, on-time manner. As Betty thought about it, she realized that their mother added adverbs to everything they did. The children weren't just to get dressed in the morning, but they were to get dressed quickly, no daydreaming allowed. They descended the stairs noiselessly, ate their breakfast punctually and cheerfully, brushed their teeth vigorously, and tucked in their bedsheets meticulously. Betty's parents, Catherine and Philip Howard, lived by the same rules they expected their children to follow. In the Howard home, everything had a place, and the children were expected to return things to their proper place when they were done with them. Betty marveled that even the pencils in the pencil box on her father's desk were all sharp and laying facing in the same direction, and the writing pads were always in perfect alignment with the corner of the desk.